we are more likely to say yes to a person who we feel we owe something to. 98% of online shoppers say that detailed online reviews are an important factor when deciding what and where to buy. Figure out if we have things like that in common, and then we can benefit from that familiarity. But if we fail to do so, then we will lose more yeses that were available to us.
What one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
To develop a skill, you need somebody to take you through it.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show. I'm your host, Ethan Cassiotis, and today I have an awesome guest. His name is Patrick van der Burgt. He is a business partner of Robert Cialdini, who wrote the book Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, which sold 7 million copies and is considered by many top CEOs to be the best business book of all time. And Patrick is a founding member of the Cialdini Institute, the only active Cialdini Institute licensed trainer in Australia and New Zealand, and has been teaching the science of ethical persuasion to professionals and teams since 2000, which helps them accelerate towards goals, to build strong relationships, whether it be in sales, advertising, leadership, or team management. And Patrick also co-authored the book, How to Hear Yes More Often, in 2024, and has his own podcast, Ethical Persuasion Unlocked. Welcome, Patrick, and thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Thank you for inviting me, Ethan. It's really exciting to be here. I remember the first time when I discovered the workings or the science of persuasion and Dr. Cialdini's work. And as I was reading through it and actually listening to cassette tapes, my eyes just got bigger, as in, are you serious? Is this how it works? And I love seeing that in an audience, like when I do a keynote or a workshop or something. I can see it in the room. I can see those eyes getting bigger and people leaning into the information. So whilst we can't see our audience at this time as they're listening to it, I'm sure that those eyes and ears are getting bigger as we're going through this material. And I know how awesome that is. And so I thank you for the opportunity to have this effect on people.
Yeah, I love it, mate. And I do have the book here, as we were discussing prior, right? Here it is, Influence there. So, by Robert Cialdini. So now this is the old version. There are multiple versions as well, just as an FYI. So see if you can get the latest version on the book. But it's a very powerful book. And I think anybody, especially as a business owner in sales, has to influence people, all of that. I think it's a must, especially if it's not a natural skill, right? To understand what we're going to be going through today. And the great thing is you're not necessarily going to have to read the whole book now. You're going to get a lot of the amazing value here from Patrick on how that all works, right? So really love this topic. I guess just to start off today, you are a successful entrepreneur. So just for those people who don't know who you are, just, introduce yourself by telling us a little bit more about you and your journey.
Okay, so yeah, I'm a Cialdini licensed trainer, and so I teach people how to be ethically more persuasive using behavioral science, so they don't go out with their communication actually not using the science that, if an architect was building a skyscraper, we wouldn't expect great results if they tried to do that without the science, right? Yet in business, we're at it every single day without the science. There's a big mismatch between what science teaches and what business does. And so, my journey with this was that I was a sales rep. I was working for a company in Australia. I was a wholesale sales rep in scuba diving equipment. I was looking after 3 states of Australia, which was quite a lot of driving to be done. And I was taking on an additional brand, which I was really excited about. But when I walked into retailers who knew me quite well and liked me very well, when I was walking in with this brand and say, oh, look at this, I've picked up Hot and Dry, which is a dry diving suit. For those who don't dive, it's a suit that seals on your neck and on your wrists, and you can wear anything underneath it to keep you warm, depending on the water temperature. And I've used those types of suits many times in the past and in the military, and this was honestly the best dry diving suit I've ever come across, and it's Australian made and still available now. And filled with enthusiasm, I was stepping into my retailer stores, And they go, you picked up wet and steamy, have you? After last year, we're not touching that again. And I'm going, what's going on, right? And so what I didn't know, and they hadn't told me, is that the year before they made a big mistake. They wanted to reduce expenses in the manufacturing process, and they changed the supplier of the inner membrane material that's supposed to keep you dry. And all the suits that went out the year prior had all delaminated, and every single one had to be replaced. And so here I have my retailers laughing at me. And right about that time, I was introduced to the science of Dr. Cialdini, the science of persuasion. And those were some cassette tapes. And because I had a friend who was a business coach, and those things were expensive back then, like $1,200 for a set of Brian Tracy CDs, I remember paying. And anyway, so I was, he had lent me this series of cassette tapes, and I was listening to those. And it was the perfect timing. And so I thought, okay, here I've got this great product, and it's completely destroyed its reputation. How am I going to fix this? And so I went into the science of what I learned from it. Luckily, I had the business coach that I could bounce things off, right? Because if we do things on our own, then often we lack the application skills and the confidence that we're doing it right, which sort of leads to the point of, yes, it's great to read a book, but without somebody actually hand-holding you through it, well, first of all, you'll forget 90%, but you're not going to have much confidence actually using it. And so anyway, bouncing ideas and things off him, long story short, from being laughed at, 18 months later, we're market leader with that suit. So that converted me for life. And I just love the fact that you don't need to lie. You don't need to cheat. There's a science to how people make decisions. And if you use that science, if you know how to look for it and use it at every opportunity in the most effective way, you can allow people to come to a yes decision if it's within them. And as we'll go into more details, I'm sure, we get a small amount of yeses, typically doing business the way we do things. But out of all the other people that we would say we got a no, they weren't actually no. A lot of those were indecision, and they could have been yes had we just supplied the right types of information.
Yeah, cool. We love the journey. And it's always interesting, right? Like, through adversity and challenges and, learning new things, right? Their skills and mindsets to, then creating something out of that and delving all in. So well done. You've been doing it for a long time, right? Since, 25 plus years it's been, since 2000 and being part of it. So I'm definitely sure you're a master and yeah, very, very important principle. So, and you mentioned there around decisions, and I think this is really important, right? Because that's what we have to make a lot of the time, right? So can you explain how people make decisions and why, I guess, there's a disconnect between what the science shows and what, business does?
Absolutely. And yeah, this also explains nicely how the principles of persuasion are then actually decision triggers for people. So you're in for a treat if this is new to you. Okay, so when it comes to decision making, I'm going to lean on the work of a Professor Daniel Kahneman, who died in 2024, unfortunately, but he was a professor in psychology and behavioral science. And he won a Nobel Prize in 2002 in economics, which is perhaps a little bit surprising, right? I mean, normally you get a Nobel Prize for making an extraordinary contribution to that particular field. So what is it then that's a professor in behavioral science figures out that had such an impact on economics that he won a Nobel Prize for it? Well, a lot of his work was related to decision making, and decisions shape economics, right? Whenever we're trying to accomplish a goal of ours, whenever there's someone else in the middle that needs to agree with us, we rely on our ability to be persuasive. Okay, so he essentially won the Nobel Prize for figuring out that a popular belief that old economics had was not true. Old economics thought human beings are logical, rational creatures, and they would therefore make decisions logically and rationally. And Daniel Kahneman demonstrated that that's not the case. And so to explain this, Daniel Kahneman says that your brain, your audience's brain, and when I say audience, it could be your potential clients, it could be your existing clients, it could be their team members that you're trying to talk to because you're trying to persuade them to come to the safety training that you're doing next week. It could be customer service where you're trying to get people to be happy with the solutions that you come up with, for them. Anywhere where we're trying to achieve our goals, we need to be persuasive. And so we're talking to people, that's our audience. And so our audience's brain has two parts when it comes to decision making: system 1 and system 2. System 1 is the intuitive part of the brain. System 1, the intuitive part. System 2, the logical, rational part of the brain. System 1, the intuitive part, works fast. It is an unconscious process. It is outside of our conscious control, and it makes decisions automatically. It takes very little effort to run, and we use System 1 a lot for everyday decisions. Now, System 1 works a lot on shortcuts. Rules of thumb that we've learned are right most of the time. An example of that is expensive equals good, right? We've learned from experience that often if you spend more money on something, the chances that you get something that's better, lasts longer, better suited to purpose increases, right? The more we spend, we typically get better stuff. And so when we're, standing in a hardware store, standing in a computer store, looking to purchase something that we don't know anything about, or not enough about, well, the alternative is to leave the store, go to the library, start reading books, maybe do workshops, and then 5 months later, you can come back to the store and make an educated decision about what it is you needed to decide on. But you and I don't have the time for that anymore. And so the shortcut, expensive equals good, allows us a shortcut to a quicker decision, right? If I'm debating between these monitors that I want to buy, or speakers, or front door for my house, if I just spend a little bit more money than I was initially planning to, chances are that I've bought something that's better suited to purpose, better quality. And you know what? That's exactly right. You will probably be better off spending a bit more money. So now, it is inevitably not true all the time. Sometimes good, expensive stuff is still rubbish, right? So it doesn't work all the time, but most of the time it does, and therefore it's very tempting for us to use that as a shortcut. The alternative is going away for 5 months reading books and learning, but if I just spend a little bit more now, I can make my decision, put it in my trolley, and I can go to the next aisle where another decision that I don't know anything about awaits me, and I'm faced with the same problem. Okay, so that's the use of shortcuts. So that's System 1, intuitive brain. On the other side, we have System 2, the logical, rational part of the brain. Now, the System 2, logical, rational part of the brain, works slowly. It takes a lot of effort to run System 2. And Daniel Kahneman actually refers to it as the lazy controller. System 2 doesn't actually want to engage. It's quite happy for System 1 to make the decisions as long as no red flags go off. System 2 is also conscious thought, where I said System 1 was unconscious thought, outside of our conscious control. System 2, logic, reason, is conscious thinking. And we do use that for complex decisions. Like System 1 can read short sentences, like things on a billboard. System 1 can detect hostility in someone's voice. System 1 can drive a car on an empty road. Sometimes you get home and you can't remember what turnoff you took from the freeway. That's because you weren't driving, System 1 was, right? Unconscious, outside of your conscious control. Where on the other hand, System 2, logic, reason, that we use for more complex decisions. So if we need to compare two washing machines, which ones should we go for? There's also a caveat with System 2. It requires our attention to do so. So where system 1 can drive a car on an empty road, system 2 is what we use when we need to park in a tight parking spot. And you can imagine if we didn't pay attention, the outcome of that wouldn't do so well, right? We'd damage our car and someone else's. Right, so that's system 2. So it's more reliable, the decisions that system 2 makes, but it doesn't actually want to engage, costs a lot of energy. Great. Daniel Kahneman demonstrates back in 2002 that 90% of our decisions are made by system 1, automatically, outside of our conscious control. Now it's said that that's 95%, and that keeps going up. And so that in itself is interesting for a couple of reasons. First of all, wow, how many decisions can a person make on autopilot? And the other question that might bubble up, why is this percentage increasing? And that has to do with our attention span. Back in the 80s, we had an attention span of 20 minutes. Ethan, have you got any idea what the attention span is supposed to be of the famous goldfish?
It's like, is it 10 seconds or something like that?
Very close. 9 seconds for the goldfish. 9 seconds for the goldfish. Our attention span is now 7 seconds. We've been beaten by the goldfish. And it's not that we can't do a task for a long period of time, right? We can, in the evening, we can sit in front of the TV and binge watch series on television. But it is how quickly are we distracted. Now, the internet had a big impact on us, right? A lot more information was at our fingertips much quicker. And so that speeded things up. More decisions needed to be made. But the last sort of nail in the coffin has been the smartphone, right? I mean, you're familiar with this. You pick it up, you need to make a phone call, you unlock it or take it to flight mode, and there's like 34 apps that are popping up with notification, which are all prompts for you to make a decision. First of all, do I want to interact with them? Yes or no. So all this stuff is coming up. Goodness, you might open one, right? And now there's a link here, link there, story from here, video from that. 20 minutes later, you put the phone down and you go, what did I pick that thing up for? You done that, right? You didn't even last 7 seconds. 2 seconds, you were gone. And so we don't have the attention span anymore to work, to allow time for system 2, right? Because it's dependent on our attention. And so herein lies the problem. When we are thinking, how am I going to convince my audience, right? You might be sitting on your desk with a notepad or thinking, how am I going to get people to interact with my lead generating efforts on social media? How am I going to get my team members to actually show up for the training that we've got planned? How do we get the team to follow the procedures that we want them to follow? When we do a sales pitch to someone, an initial sales pitch, as in we want to sell a bigger appointment after that, how are we going to convince them to do that? And then when we do that big presentation, how am we going to convince our audience to sign on the dotted line and give us the business? When we're sitting there thinking all that, we are using conscious thought. And so we are using system 2 at that moment. And the problem is that system 2 tends to come up with reasoning justifications that require system 2 in the other person to process that information. And they don't have the time for that anymore. And so you can give them all the rational reasons why they should listen to you, right? Oh, it's good for the environment. It's going to save you money. You get there faster. But this is all system 2 information, and they don't have the time for it anymore. So we actually create more uncertainty in them, and they push back. They decide not to decide. And so if you, let's say, make 1,000 proposals in a given period of time, right? And that could be asking for a sale, could be asking your team members to do what you're asking for, right? 1,000 proposals, 1,000 requests you send out, you get a certain amount of yeses. In most businesses, be a relatively small amount of yeses. And the vast majority, well, they didn't buy what you were offering. And so you would say, well, I got a no. Maybe in a lot of those cases, they actually told you no, the timing's not right for us, or let me talk about it with my partner, right? And so a lot of these no's, we would argue, weren't actually no's. A big percentage of those, much larger than you can probably imagine, weren't no's, they were indecision. Had you just given the right pieces of information for their system one to go, you know what, that's probably good for me, system one decision, then you would have seen a lot more yeses. So Daniel Kahneman says it's system one that runs the show. That's the one that you need to move. And so, for the longest time, he's been asked, well, this is amazing research, won a Nobel Prize for it, but how do we do that? How do we move system one? And basically, for the longest time, he's been pointing at Dr. Cialdini. Go talk to Dr. Cialdini, because what's in that book, Influence, or what we teach is, as essentially all the information that you can identify that applies to system one, which allows people to make those shortcut kind of decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Love it. It's very, very powerful. And yeah, especially the left brain people that are the more logical, they tend to be the ones that give out too much information. And it's like, information overload, right? When you're trying to influence someone in that stage too. So I love it. I used to, for one of my business coaches many years ago, in a very simple sense, was like, people buy off emotion majority and reinforce with logic a little bit at the end, maybe. But the logic is like so minute, which is the system two, right? Where the other side is that, that intuitive side, right? Where they just make the decision. And obviously these principles and everything are going to be key to that. And let's jump into them now, because I love it. I think they're so very powerful. So please explain the principles of persuasion to us, and include some of the, ideas or strategies that our audience will be able to profit from.
Yeah, no worries. I love sharing things people can use immediately. And just to jump in what you said before, yes, we do justify our decisions with logic and reason. And most of the time, when system one makes a decision, system two agrees with it. They don't disagree with each other. There is something like buyer's remorse, but most of the cases, system two justifies the decision that system one has made, right? If I wanted to, I've never bought a Ferrari, but if I did buy one, right, then afterwards, system two would justify to me, well, you know what, you work really hard, Patrick, and you really earned a Ferrari, right? So they don't tend to disagree all that much. All right, let's jump into the principles. So there are 7 universal principles of persuasion. And we call them universal because they work in all languages, in all cultures, and all countries. And that is exceedingly powerful nowadays because our cultures are intermixed, which is awesome, right? And it's also easy to do business with people in other countries. So this is a skill that helps us no matter who we deal with. All right, so the 7 principles. Now, all these words you've heard before. And all these words you might go, oh yeah, reciprocity, yeah, I know how that works. The fact that you've heard of it doesn't mean you actually know what's behind it. And we have a cheeky way of sort of slapping people awake a little bit in terms of the fact that you know it or you think you know it doesn't mean you actually know it. And the fact, even if you do know it, doesn't mean you actually use it. And even if you do use it, you might not be using it in the most effective way. And all these steps means that you are losing time, resources, and competitive advantage every single day. All right, so I'll go through the principles. Even if you've heard it before, pay attention and be critical with yourself. Are you actually using this stuff? Because 96% of websites that I go into, I can just look at the front page and go, clearly they have no idea, right? They might have heard about it, but they're certainly not using it. All right, let's start with reciprocity. So, and I'll explain the rules of why these things work. So reciprocity works on the rule that we want to give back. We have a tendency to want to give back the same type of behavior that was first given to us. And in the context of compliance, we are more likely to say yes to a person who we feel we owe something to. Right? Now, in business, a lot of us have understood that message and gone, okay, so we need to give people stuff. And that's essentially right? If you give something to someone else, if you help someone, right? It doesn't need to all be tangible gifts, it could be intangible gifts. When you help someone, they are appreciative for that. And so when you come up with a request down the line, and reciprocity has a long expiry date, then you'll be empowered by effectively an emotional bank account being out of balance, right? I mean, if let's say if I found you 3 very good clients for you, you'd feel a little bit uneasy, as in now you're really looking hard to try and find me some people, right, to help me with, because we feel there's like an emotional bank account that needs to be settled. Now, a lot of people in business do this wrong, as in they think they're investing in reciprocity and they're completely missing the boat. Let me give you an example. The downloadable ebook on a website. Sometimes you see that, right? You're on the website. Hey, we've got an ebook. It's wonderful, valuable information. You can have this as our gift. Just put your name, your email address. We'll send you the download link, our gift to you. Nice try. It's not going to activate reciprocity, because a gift is something that's given without a requirement needing to be met. In the case of the ebook, it was name and email address first, and then we'll send you the download link. It wasn't a gift. It was a reward. And so the person, and I'm not saying it's a bad lead generator, it just doesn't activate reciprocity. So instead, what someone could do, or you could do both, right? Let's say you're a consultant on something. You could have a downloadable ebook, but you could also have, a one-page checklist of something, right? If you're looking to, sell your business in the coming 10 years, then these are the 15 things that you should not fail to get organized now so that you have a bigger chance of selling your business and get top dollar for it down the track, right? And that list is valuable information that you could put on your website and just put there, just right-click and download. No email required. Now it's a gift. Now it's like the piece of cheese that you get in the supermarket. You get presented with a tray of cheese, and people take a piece of cheese, and most people think that does not change their behavior. And the research is very clear, right? You give things away, things come back. And what I think is absolutely hilarious is that it doesn't matter if you don't like the cheese, because it's not about the cheese. It's about the behavior. You were nice to me. Now I need to be nice to you. So when you help someone, let's say with this right-click download checklist, and it was helpful to them, now it feels in the back of their mind like, you were helpful to them. You were nice to them. And next time you come with a request for, hey, can we do a phone call? Hey, we've got a webinar, come join us. Whatever that is, you're going to be empowered by that reciprocity sitting in the situation. Okay, let's move on. And Ethan, I'll trust you to take notes. If you want me to circle back to anything, we can. Yeah, if we've got time. Or we can do another 3 episodes. All right. Liking. So the principle of liking works for these rules. We like people that are like us. We like people that like us. And we like people that like us and say so, right? So there's 3 things in there. We like people that are like us. That's similarities, right? If we have things in common with someone else, then we like them more. That's why it's crucial at the beginning of a phone call or a business meeting, allowing, provided the setting allows it, you shouldn't dive straight into business. You should first build rapport. right? And do some homework on people. Try and figure out what they're into. I mean, most people have a social media feed. With me, I like riding motorcycles. I've got a big Harley Davidson, right? And if you ride motorcycles and you tell me, we're like already best mates, right? So figure out what you have in common with people and let that surface in conversation. We like people that like us. Now, that sounds logical, right? But yet in sales training, what are you typically taught? If you're trying to sell me your services, then you should do what you can so that I like you. That's not wrong, but it's not the most powerful. If you're trying to sell me something, it's nice if I like you. But it would be better if I got the feeling that you genuinely liked me. Because if you like me, you're going to look after me, right? And so I'm safe with you. And so again, if we do homework on the people we deal with, if we can genuinely figure out the reasons why we would appreciate another person, we like them more. Even if you don't say it, people can sense it and they feel safer with you, right? So they like you more. It's a big relationship builder. And then the last one was compliments. We are suckers for compliments. And there's no need to make up any fake compliments, right? You can compliment people on their real values or how they've dressed or something they wear, right? Just look for something you genuinely like. And you've heard that word genuinely a few times now. It is important that we use all this stuff ethically. Science shows that persuasion science, you can use it unethically to manipulate people. And that might produce short-term results, but it is long-term disaster because nobody comes back to a situation where they didn't do well in the bargaining, in the arrangement. Where science shows if we use it ethically, it produces short-term results and also long-term results, and it builds strong, loyal relationships. So we want to use this ethically at every turn. And ethics we can spend a lot of more time on. All right. Reciprocity, liking. Let's move to unity. So that's the new principle, if you will. It was introduced in 2015. So unity is often confused with liking. Unity is about a feeling of community that we both feel part of. If I can describe me and someone else as we, right, that means that we feel part of a group. And within that group, we have favoritism with each other. And so again, by figuring out where maybe someone is from or where they went to school or what university they went to, we can figure out if we have things like that in common, and then we can benefit from that familiarity. But if we fail to do so, then we will lose more yeses that were available to us. Co-creation is also part of unity. So where we work together on something. So let's say you've got 5 tasks for your team members to do. And you've got 5 team members that you want to give those tasks to. You could go to each person individually and give them one task to do, and you probably get all the work done. But instead, you could go to the 5 people and say, hey, team, I've got these 5 things that need to be done. Can you guys, or you team, you ladies, can you figure out how to get these tasks done? And you take care of it, right? Now they have to co-create with each other to decide who's going to do what and get things happening that way. By assigning the task that way, you're now allowing your team to co-create, and therefore they build more loyalty between them. You benefit with better team coherency. Now you could easily waste that by not knowing how co-creation works. All right, let's move on. Social proof. A lot of people are familiar with that term. If you've heard of the word social proof, then you can thank Dr. Cialdini because he invented it. Before that, it was called consensus, which was a little bit less clear, right? So he came up with the term social proof. In business, most of us are now on the bandwagon of collecting reviews and testimonials. And that's good, and you should definitely keep doing that. 98% of online shoppers say that detailed online reviews are an important factor when deciding what and where to buy. So we definitely want to do that. And for those paying attention, detailed reviews. So when you ask someone to leave you a review, I don't think it's unethical to ask them, say, hey, would you mind leaving a review for us? We'd really appreciate it. And if you could add some details about your experience with us, that would be great, right? Because that testimonial then becomes more valuable to the people reading it. Interestingly enough, if it says in the testimonial that something happened today, that also gives it more value. So you could even prompt, so would you mind, given that this has happened today, or you've just picked up your car today, or you bought this machine from us today, would you mind putting in the testimonial that, you know, you picked your tractor up this today, or whatever it is, right? Great. So testimonials, online reviews are a way of social proof. And so social proof works. The rule, let's say, is that we follow the leads of others, especially when they are numerous, when they are similar to us, and when we are uncertain, right? We're all familiar with this. You're walking through the city. You want to go to a restaurant with your partner. You want to have a romantic dinner. One restaurant completely empty, one restaurant sort of half full. You're not that attracted to go to the empty restaurant, right? If the locals are going to that restaurant, they must know something that you don't, right? And so we go to the half-filled restaurant. Now, interestingly enough, as you approach the restaurant and you can now actually see who's inside, let's say a lot of my friends are all motorbike riders in the leathers, helmets on the table, a lot of big shoes and that sort of stuff. They're not really like you, right? Unless you are a motorcycle rider and you identify with that, now it would be even more attractive to go there, right? But if they're not like you, then you might even change your mind and look for another restaurant, right? So there's that similarity that's still important as well. What can I give you here? So let's say you're approaching someone and you're making a pitch. You might include in your pitch, let's say 5 testimonials of, genuine testimonials that you've collected, you've received in the past. And they are the 5 that you like a lot, right? There's an older gentleman, an older lady, there's this mature couple, there's a 30, 40-year-old female, male, and this young girl, 18, who's just started her business and is using your services and is happy. Now, this is great, right? These are 5 other people that have used your services and were happy. And so that's social proof, right? So that fits with the rule. We follow the leads of others. But let's imagine you probably have a lot more testimonials, and you know that you're today presenting to a mature couple that is running a business together. And so instead of rocking up with your 5 favorite testimonials, what if you were a detective of influence and you went through your file of testimonials and reviews and you lifted out 5 testimonials of other mature couples who run a business together, who use your services and are you can feel it, right, Ethan?
Yeah, definitely.
Right? You're more now, they're just like me, right? That is more powerful because you're now amplifying the effect of social proof with similarity. All right, with social proof, there is a lot more to social proof than just testimonials and reviews. If you think that online reviews and testimonials is something that you should not use, then you'll be horrified to know how many other dynamics equally powerful are also existing and you're not using those. So there's a lot more to social proof. Authority. Authority works on the rule that we follow the advice of others who have genuinely more expertise or knowledge on a particular topic than we do. And this makes sense too, right? We can't know everything. And so if we're in a situation and there's someone there that genuinely knows a lot more about this stuff than we do, it makes sense to follow their advice. And so that's why the opinions of doctors and experts are something worthwhile to bring up into your conversation Just like I explained that Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman says that System 1 runs the show. And you should look at Dr. Cialdini's work, right? Your subconscious now goes, well, an expert said so, we should pay attention. Of course, I'm using this stuff on you guys too. But it's all genuine, and then you don't mind. All right, so what's interesting is that, of course, all of us, we are our own experts, right? As in, we also have expertise in our field. But if we are face to face with someone, we have lost the opportunity to raise our credentials to the surface. You cannot come into a meeting and go, hi, my name's Patrick. Let me tell you the 34 reasons why you should listen to me today, right? I mean, you might not use those words, but the subconscious of your audience is going to go, you are full of yourself, right? And you lose authority and you lose liking. So there's other socially acceptable ways to get your authority to the surface without it being not socially acceptable. All right, and we'll wrap this up. So consistency is another principle that works because we want to stay true to past actions and behaviors, statements that we've made in the past. And so if we can uncover what's important to someone or get them to make an initial small step, which is in line with the request we will make later, it's a lot harder to say no to that follow-up request. So that's consistency. And then scarcity, which we're familiar with. We value things more that are less available, right? Actually, something in us changes. We can't think straight. As soon as somebody says, right, oh, we're about to run out, or this is only available now, right? We have to put the brakes on, as in we have to defend ourselves. We can't actually think straight when that information comes up because from an evolutionary perspective, it makes sense, right? If I have a certain amount of resources, if I get more resources, well, that's nice. But if I lose resources, that could be detrimental, right? And so we're wired to pay attention to the potential of losing something. Yet I would challenge your audience to pick up a brochure you have, to listen to one of your sales team talking, or to look at the front page of your website and read it or listen to how you are pitching the benefits of what it is you're offering. And the smart money is, if we were placing a bet, is that you are talking gain language. You are telling people what they get more if they use your product or your service or accept your idea or your proposal. You're not telling them what they stand to lose if they don't use your product or your service. And you can easily be twice more as effective by integrating the fear of loss than talking about gain all the time. And that's typically what business does. So those are the 7 principles. So I hope I've given you a lot of little insights to work with as well.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Patrick. Amazing, right? And yeah, I love all of these and I do all of them, right? And I'll just quickly in like 1 minute, right? Like I'll give people some examples of me, right? So reciprocity, I always say this with high level relationships. So if you want to, meet someone that's, more wealthy or successful or whatever, how can you add value first into the relationship? This is the reciprocity, right? Maybe it's connecting them to someone. Maybe it's interviewing them on your podcast, right? If you've got that, or whatever it is that you can do, help them in some way, then the reciprocity comes in. You're more likely to build a relationship with them, right? So very important on that side. The liking, obviously, those similarities, the rapport, always very important at the start of a conversation. So I love all of that, the compliment side of things. The unity, this is the new one, but I love the community and what I've done in my website, and I love using this word, I think to everybody, is partner. How can we partner together, right? How can we do something together? Because we normally can do more together than we can do on our own, right? With other people. So I think it's a great way to connect. Social proof's pretty self-explanatory. Obviously having areas that shows that you can actually demonstrate, what you do. I love authority. I talk a lot about authority. Speaking on stages is a big one. Obviously who you're around and everything like that, your connections, all of that. There's so many elements to it. Writing books, like you've done, etc. Can raise your authority on that expertise. So love authority. So I think it's so important. Consistency, just like a podcast, right? Or posting on social media. if you don't have consistency, you're going to be forgotten and you're not going to gain the momentum, right? So I think consistency, anything in business. Yeah.
I have to interrupt you a little bit there, Ethan. You made a common mistake.
Interesting.
Consistency is never about you. It is good to be consistent, right? Because if people say one thing and they do something else, then we worry about them, right? We want people to be consistent. But in terms of as a principle of persuasion, as a piece of information that qualifies for system one to make an easier decision, it is about your audience staying consistent with something they did earlier. That is the shortcut. While I applaud you being consistent and doing things regularly, that's definitely good. But when it comes to the principle of persuasion, consistency, it's never about what we do. It's about our audience.
Love it, right? So thanks for that thing. So this is the good thing about going through it, right? Because a lot of people probably can make that assumption right there. So I love that about them to create consistency in that area. And then scarcity, of course, having less amounts of that. And you probably see that around, but it's true as well. We only have a certain amount of time or resources that we can do. So highlighting that is obviously very important. So I love all of those elements there. So powerful. And I know we've done a fair while here today. Let's talk quickly about ethics, right? Because I think this is important because, you hear some people going, oh, well, what if I'm like forcing people to do things or whatever like that, right? So how does ethics come into this as well?
Okay, so I touched on that a little bit, but and I applaud you for bringing it up. Sometimes we do things in business that when we actually look at it a bit closer, it's not actually ethically. And so we're a little bit on a slippery slope, or we might be doing something that's already damaging us. And so it's important to be ethical. As I explained before, if we get found out for making up information, right? Saying that something's low on stock and it's always low on stock, right? You go to those websites and there's a sale on 2 hours and 16 minutes left, right? And then for some reason you forget about that page. You come back a week later and the tab is still open. That's me. Like I've got 100 tabs open at any one time. You come back to that tab and oh wow, look at that. There's still 2 hours and 7 minutes left on the sale that just happened to be on today, right? You instantly lose respect for that business. I mean, if they lie and try to manipulate you like that, you can only wonder about the quality of their products, right? Or how they would even deal with you if you had a problem after you've bought it from them, right? So you immediately discount them. And in a world of having so much choice now of people you can deal with, you never come back to those people. Dr. Cialdini also was very keen to do some research on the cost to business of using unethical practices. And he actually discovered, which might be interesting, 3 cancers that he identified within a business. First of all, people that, if you ask employees to do unethical behavior, it doesn't sit well with us, right? None of us, or most of us, don't like the idea that we cannot get ahead without lying or cheating other people, right? And so as a result of that, it raises stress and it increases things like sick leave. So there's a cost associated to that. Then, as we certainly now with the war on talent being on, people are getting more and more picky of where they'll actually work. And a lot of people, more than most people, last report I read somewhere, if the values of the company don't align with the value of the person, they typically actively look to leave that company and go somewhere else. So you could have, it's very hard to find good staff. And so you could be getting rid of your best people by forcing people to do unethical practices. And then thirdly, which is sort of funny, most people don't like being unethical, but there are some people that don't mind being unethical. And they're a different type of person. They're the unethical type of person, right? And so they do deals by the side, right? I mean, if they're happy to be unethical to the customers, they're also unethical to the business, right? They walk out with the office furniture and the stapler and all that sort of stuff. So there's no whole other cost. And so nowadays with our actions outwards, with social media, it is so easy now to basically destroy a person or a company brand in a day almost, right? If something backlashes on social media. And so there's no need to risk it all because you just want to use a couple of principles or a couple of strategy in an unethical way where you could just learn the science. It's not that complicated, really. Learn the science and then maximize what you're actually getting out of it and build long, loyal relationships as a result. In case someone is wondering, how do you figure out if something is ethical? We have these questions. It's not foolproof, but it helps. Question one is, am I telling the truth? Right? Clearly, if you're lying, then chances are what you're doing is not ethical. Second of all, is what I'm saying naturally in the situation? Not imported, not exaggerated or counterfeited in any way. And the third one, if I make this request of someone and they said yes to me, would they be happy to deal with me again in the future? And if the answer to that is no, then chances are what you're doing or proposing is also not ethical. So not a bad idea to look at some of the processes that we're already implementing and see if it passes those three rules. And if it doesn't, just replace it with something ethical.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I think it's really important. And, and influence is really, the simple way that I'll explain it to people, right, is like sales influence is in everything in life, whether it's your partner, your family, your team, clients, partners, all of that, right? And if you have a great product or service and they need that product or service and you can't persuade them to get it, everybody loses, right? Because they're screaming for this thing. And if you can't do it properly, then you don't make money, they don't get it, and all of that. So it's our duty to basically learn how to influence and persuade people, right? To do this sort of stuff. So I think the work that you're doing on behalf of, Robert Cialdini with these principles is so important, right? For anybody in any area of life. So I think it's been really amazing, what you've shown and those examples and everyone, so everyone could really take that away from this episode. And I guess as we're starting to wrap up here today, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
Well, the thing I'd love to impress upon you is that sort of what I mentioned in the beginning, to develop a skill, you need somebody to take you through it, right? Information is not power, right? We've got smartphones, we can access an enormous amount of information by the press of a few buttons. That doesn't help you develop a skill. And so by to employ somebody is, a lot of money. Invest a little bit at the beginning of that journey to teach them the science of persuasion, which, by the way, the World Economic Forum 12 months ago released that Future of Jobs report, 2025. And in there, leadership and social influence, which is another word for ethical persuasion, was ranked as the third most urgent skill for businesses to develop. So, yes, get the book or get the audiobook. It's an awesome listen to. There's some free tools that I can give you as well. And as you know, I've got my own podcast, Ethical Persuasion Unlocked. Seriously, start with episode 1 and 2 and just work your way forward. You'll be fascinated. But you're going to lose a lot of that information and you're not going to be developing the application skills because you're also lacking the confidence that you're actually doing it right. So yeah, this is an important soft skill, and it makes sense to invest in yourself or, in your team members to make them more effective and stop them losing all this time, resources, and competitive advantage that was really yours to have.
Yeah, I love it. Completely agree. And this is the power of coaches and mentors like yourself, like myself, right? Is that, and we have them as well to help us to learn things, to ingrain things, to practice things, to keep us accountable, to help us continue to grow so that it becomes more automatic, right? In that way there. And obviously I know you can help a lot of people with that as well with these principles and really embedding them in so many different areas of our life. So, mate, it's been a pleasure. And, we connected, through our networks, learned about your awesome journey in various, sales, business development roles, now being the only active Cialdini Institute licensed trainer in Australia and New Zealand. Awesome guy. I'm sure you continue to help, people accelerate, towards their goals, build strong relationships, whether it be in sales, advertising, leadership, or team management, and really embody these elements, which I think, like you said, are so important from all the studies out there to really do that. And, I'm very grateful we connected, look forward to partnering as well. So Patrick, how can people find you, learn about your podcast, get in touch with you and partner with you and all of that?
Thanks for asking. So I've got a website, of course, ethicalpersuasion.com.au, because I'm based in Australia. Also there's a free section and there's some complimentary things that you can give yourself access to, including an ebook, which you don't have to put your email address in, just right click and download. So it's a true gift. There's also a community that you can be part of. The podcast, Ethical Persuasion Unlocked. And on social media, we're also fairly active. And I would like to say that 80% of what we're sharing, there's actually a lesson in there. So find me on LinkedIn and Facebook, Ethical Persuasion or Patrick Vandenberg. And if you've got any questions, reach out to our team.
Yeah, awesome. Love it. So definitely check out Patrick there. The websites, the ebook, the podcast, the socials. There's so much knowledge and gold there for him. And mate, it's been a pleasure interviewing on the Business Growth Show. Thanks for being on there.
Thanks a lot, Ethan.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Business Growth Show, where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Ethan Casiotis, or visit my website, ethancasiotis.com. And if you want to grow and scale your business, you'd reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. So until next time, remember that our business grows where we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So let's create wealth and freedom together.